Good morning, Faith family. How exciting that we get to connect daily in the Word through our devotions that come out of our Sunday school lesson each week. We're still on the topic of faith. We're dealing specifically with James chapter 2, verses 21 through 25. And I like how our writer seems to allude to what many see as a contradiction between what Paul is saying in Romans chapter 3, verse 28. Of course, also Ephesians 2, 8, 9. And in what James is teaching us here in James chapter 2. But nothing could be further from the truth. And his analogy is pretty accurate in that if I'm sitting in a doctor's office and I have someone on one side, the doctor has diagnosed the problem and he's prescribed a means of dealing with that problem. And then he comes to another person on the other side and the diagnosis is almost the same, but the person's different. And so the prescription that he gives is different as well. It's a similar situation because of context, meaning Paul's writing to a church at Rome where there's obviously a heavy Jewish influence and many believers are still trying to work out their salvation by obeying the law perfectly. And Paul says that we're justified by faith, not by obeying every letter of the law. And then James comes back and he says, we are indeed justified by faith. However, if we've truly experienced saving faith, then that faith is then going to result in works. And so we see here in these verses two examples, starting in verse 21. Wasn't Abraham our father justified by works in offering Isaac his son on the altar? You see, that faith was active together with his works, and by works, faith was made complete. And the scripture was fulfilled that says, Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. And he was called God's friend. You see that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone. In the same way, wasn't Rahab the prostitute also justified by works in receiving the messengers and sending them out by a different route? So here we have two examples, one featuring the most prominent figure in Jewish history, being Abraham, saying that his faith is what prompted him to the work. I like the way that he says in verse 22 that his faith was working together. His faith and his works were coming together to produce a mature faith, or a complete faith is the word he uses there. And so with Rahab, similar situation, totally different person. He even acknowledges that she was a prostitute, wasn't necessarily a part of the nation of Israel. And yet because she believed that God would do what he said as coming through the message of the spies, she responded by hiding them and sending them out. And that faith prompted her to work a work that would result in saving the spies. And so as you look at the questions, I hope you see a correlation between what they're asking and what we've focused on Sunday mornings for several weeks now. Christ-like character will produce Christ-like conduct. First question asks, how are faith and works connected in the life of a Christian? Parents, I would encourage you to give some examples of how after becoming a believer, that faith then produced some works. Maybe they were totally different works. Or maybe these were new works, new attitudes, new actions. Young people, don't shy away from giving examples from your own personal walk of how you act or how attitudes that you have now that are completely different from those that you had before you became a follower of Jesus. Second question, how was real faith proven in the lives of Abraham and Rahab? Of course, that question is intended to help us understand that if we're truly born again, if we're saved, if we have saving faith, then we will have the actions that line up with the life of Christ. So I hope you have a great time working through these verses together as a family, and I look forward to getting together with you on Sunday at 10 o'clock via our live stream. But until then, remember, live sent.